Should you lease a car if you drive a lot? It's a question I get often. And leasing, if you drive a lot, does not mean that leasing is off the table. It just means your lease needs to be set up properly so that you don't get into a lot of trouble on the back end of the lease. In this video, I'm going to break it down so you can understand it and then use this information to your benefit. The mileage question comes up quite often. In most cases, when you're around the campfire and people are asked about leasing a car, you'll hear this: I can't lease because I drive too many miles. I want to challenge that thinking. What if you drive a lot of miles and do a 6-year loan, but you're going to drive 20,000 miles a year and you drive the value right out of that car, and definitely the warranty's done in 3 years? It puts you in a different position to where you're looking for another car when you don't want to be because you're out of warranty and you're starting to have issues. If you set a lease up properly, you can drive it's usually 10 to 15,000 miles a year is what you're going to find. However, we have done leases for people up to 30,000 miles a year. And it's super beneficial because after 3 years, you're completely done with the car. Now, if you go over your miles, it's going to cost you 15 to 30 cents a mile. So those are numbers you should write down. The majority of leases are in the 20 cents to 25 cents. But you should know it because that way you can predict and calculate what you're going to have to pay if you're going over your yearly allotted amount. Sometimes your your driving habits are so random that you probably shouldn't consider it. I'm not going to say that under every circumstance you should lease a car. I'd usually say consider it, but not that you have to do it. If you really can't predict how many miles you're going to drive, it puts you at risk of going over and being completely stressed out. And nobody wants that. So if you have a sales job that sometimes having you drive to different states, or it's just basically random and you cannot predict it, I would not recommend that you lease a car. I would say let's just do a loan, try to speed up the payoff on that vehicle and put yourself in a better position. If your job requires a lot of driving, that's another reason that you may want to consider just purchasing instead of leasing, because they should be reimbursing you for those miles. But once again, they're just going to be random. It's going to be very hard to predict. But we do have people that do drive 20,000 miles a year and they can predict it. Like they have had the same pattern for 3 or 4 years. So they still consider that they're going to continue to drive that types of miles, and we can definitely predict it. We do this a lot. Then having a newer car every 3 years that's still under warranty is super beneficial. So let's do that 20,000 mile a year lease. Payment's going to be a little bit higher than one that was only 10,000 miles a year, but there's an end spot. We're just going to get this done, and in 3 years, you're moving on to the next one. All right, so let's say you decided, right? I drive a lot, but I'm going to try this lease thing out. Here's a few things you can do to make sure you're successful in this journey. Number one, buy extra miles at the beginning. You can pay for the miles up front, or you can pay for them in the end when you turn the lease in. They're 10 cents a mile up front. Like I said earlier, they're 15 to 30 cents on the back end. So if you build them into your payment, it's going to cost you less over the life of the lease. The next step is to track your mileage monthly. Once you start this lease, you don't want to be stressed out to where you're doing it every day, but every month, take a look at your car, use that trip counter in the vehicle and look at where you're at, and it'll tell you, last month you drove 2,000 miles. It's like, wow, I'm driving 24,000 miles a year, and I set my lease up for 30. So I've got some space here. I'm good to go. Keep track of your miles. Now, let's say you do all of this and you still go way over on your miles. How can you avoid the mileage penalty? It would be a dire situation at that point, but let's say you went over by 10,000 miles and you don't have the $2,500 to pay for your mileage, and you like the car and it's something that you could live with keeping. You could write a check for it or do another loan and buy the car out. There will be no mileage penalty if you buy the car out at the end. Now, guys, this is for that dire situation. I don't recommend you do this, but it is a way out if you put yourself in a position that this happens to you. Now, when would this happen? Probably if your job changes, you move, you're in the military and you go somewhere else, and your driving habits just randomly change. It's not like you're locked in. You just got to look at what options are available. So, guys, driving a lot does not exclude you from leasing cars. It is still something that you can consider if you're looking for a new car and you just always ruled it out because you drive so much. Just be careful and make sure you're looking at the mileage and you're setting your lease up properly. You can do this easily by calling me. We always make sure our people are getting into a beneficial position when they're leasing vehicles. We tell them up front, you need more miles to drive based on your habits. So reach out to me if you have questions. Hit the subscribe button and like the video. I hope you have a great day.